Alright guys, so now that the games have been out for a few weeks now, I think it's time that we finally do our Pokemon Sword and Shield damage report. And get into how much of a colossal mess these games end up being. So, right up front I want to make this clear that this is not meant to be a review. I have not personally played the games myself. This video is just going to be my impression of these games based on my over a decade and a half of playing the Pokemon games, combined with all the information that I've gathered from the few weeks before Swish launched, with all the leaks and the data mine and all of that, and then the information I've gathered post-launch from watching hours and hours and hours of walkthroughs, gameplay videos, etc. So anyway, getting right into it, the first most important thing we need to talk about, of course, is the Pokedex and the new Pokemon. So these games gave us 81 new Pokemon. Now, this is not including any mythicals, and according to the data mine, there was 2 extra slots for mythical Pokemon that they actually didn't have the data for. So maybe they finally learned their lesson to not include the mythicals in the game until they're actually getting ready to distribute them. So if we go ahead and count the 2 extra ones, which are probably going to be coming later, that'll be 83, which will be the exact same number that Sun and Moon gave us prior to, the expansion of the Dex in Ultra Sun and Moon. So again, under 100. I'd like to point out that I was right when I said that there wasn't going to be over 100 new Mons. People claimed that when the Dex cut happened, and of course they were wrong. So, 81 new Pokemon. On top of that, we got 13 regional variants this time, which I believe is slightly lower than what we got in Gen 7. If I remember correctly, I think we got 18 Alolan forms. So, only 13 Galarian forms this time. As far as their distribution goes, 6 of them are from Generation 1. 1 of them is from Generation 2. 2 of them are from Generation 3. 4 of them are from Generation 5. So that means Gens 4, 6, and 7 didn't get shit. But it's still a better distribution than last time, where they restricted them all to Gen 1 for no reason. So, a step in the right direction at least. The only issue with this was the thing, I was worried about this, I mentioned it before when I talked about Surfetch, and it turns out my fears were right. There was in fact a Galarian Farfetch'd as one of the variants, and beyond that, all of the other Legacy evolutions we got in this game are all restricted to just Galarian forms. Which, again, it's so dumb to put these restrictions on things when there's absolutely no reason to do so. They did it last gen with the regional variants themselves. They did it this time with the Legacy evolutions, restricting them to the regional variants. And there's just no need for it. I don't understand why they have these great concepts and they voluntarily put themselves in a box and keep from taking advantage of them. So that was really dumb. And then the other pseudo new Pokemon we got this time was the Gigantamax forms. There are 26 of them altogether, and the distribution of these is a lot more skewed. 10 of them are from Generation 1. Generations 5 and 7 both got 1 each, and the other 14 are all from Generation 8. So, definitely more skewed towards Gens 1 and 8 on these. Design-wise, a lot of them are just pretty bad. And that goes for the Gigantamaxes, the regional variants, and the new Pokemon. I know designs is always something that's going to be subjective, and I get that. But just for reference myself, usually when a new generation comes out, I can count on one hand the number of new designs that I absolutely hate. There's some I may not care for too much, and usually a lot that I'm more neutral towards. But the ones that like I absolutely am repulsed by just looking at them is usually a really, really, really small number. This gen, I think that number ended up being higher than all the other gens combined. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous how many just god awful designs we got this time. I'm not gonna go through every single design because that would take forever, but a few I wanted to point out. The final evolutions for all the starters, and the mid evolutions for that matter, are just absolutely terrible. I don't know what happened, especially Cinderace. Like, that thing is just an abomination. And I've never hated any of the starter final evos before. Like, the closest I've ever come to not really liking one was Chestnut. And even Chestnut wasn't terrible. Like, I didn't hate him or anything. I was just more underwhelmed by him than the other ones. But I really hate all three of these. Rillaboom is the closest one to being, like, decent. And that one still kind of sucks. So the starter evos are awful. Dreadnaught's pre-evo named Choodle. Its head and its face are so retarded that it just kills me. Roly-Coly's 2 evos, absolute abominations. Which, that one really disappointed me because I liked Roly-Coly when I first saw him, and I thought that he would end up evolving into something cool, and he absolutely did not. Carkol, his middle evolution, just had a really, like, weird face. And then the final evolution, Colossal, has a giant pile of coal on his back that looks like if he moved an inch, it would all come tumbling down, and it just looks absurd. There's a whole line based on an apple, like a worm and an apple. I really hate that line. A lot of people like it for some reason. I don't know why. I think it looks stupid. And another thing that really bothers me about it is the two final... It's a split evolution. The final evos for it are named Applin and Appleton. Flapple and Appleton, excuse me. And both those can Gigantamax, but their Gigantamax forms both use the exact same model. So their Gigantamax forms look exactly alike. So it's sort of a Megalatios situation, except even worse because at least the Megalates had different color eyes and different sizes, I believe. Which I didn't like that, and this is just a step further of that, even worse. So that was really dumb. The pseudo-legendary is named Dragapult. I've seen a lot of people really love this thing. I think it looks awful. I think it's a cool idea, but I think the execution was just horrible, and it just looks really bad. The fossil Pokemon, again, fantastic idea, absolutely terrible execution. They did the thing this time where the fossils are all split into 2, and you can like mix and match them to revive them. But like the 2 front ends and the 2 back ends are from 4 separate Pokemon. And we didn't get the back ends and the front ends to go with them. So there's no way to create like a complete normal looking Pokemon. It's always going to be a mismatched head and a mismatched ass smashed together. And they all look so stupid and out of place. And even the Dex entries talk about how like they're constantly in pain, and they look like failed science experiments, and it's just awful. They're basing this on the idea of like, you know, in real life when fossils were first being found, scientists made mistakes and thought that this bone went with this thing when it actually went with something else. And that's a cool idea to base this off of. But the way they did it, instead of giving us like cool hybrid looking dinosaur things, we just ended up with 4 goofy joke abomination monster designs. And they all look awful. The regional variants, I didn't like a lot of those. The Galarian Ponyta that we saw before launch, I liked it, and I said I was looking forward to seeing Galarian Rapidash. Once we finally saw him, he ended up looking like Charlie the Unicorn wearing drag, so that was a really big letdown. They made Meowth into a Viking for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but that's what happened. And then the biggest issue with the variants is absolutely Galarian Darmanitan. Now, Galarian Darumaka, I like it. I think it looks really good. It's Ice type. But once it evolves, it stays Ice type. But Darmanitan, he basically gets like a giant afro made of snow. And he looks totally ridiculous. But then it gets even worse because he keeps his Zen mode ability. And his new Zen mode for his Galarian form, he basically changes into a snowman. Except he regains his fire typing, so instead of a carrot nose, he's got like a stream of fire shooting out, melting his own face. And this thing is such a god-awful, just meme joke design. It gets on my nerves so bad because I've been waiting so long for a fire and ice type, and we finally get it, and it's this. It's not something cool, it's a joke. It's meant to be funny. And it's not funny. I've just fucking had it. Speaking of joke designs, most of the Gigantamaxes were that case, especially the Gen 1 ones. They literally turned Gigantamax Gengar into like the soy boy Wojak with the mouth open and the arms and everything. Gigantamax Garbodor was the one from Gen 5. And it looks okay, but like on the back, there's a train in its ass. I'm not sure why. I can't really figure out if it's shitting the train out or using it as like giant anal beads. But either way, it looks totally ridiculous. I gotta be sure to mention anal beads and shit like that in these videos so, you know, YouTube doesn't think they're for kids. But anyway, Gigantamax Snorlax, he basically just has a giant tree growing out of his stomach for no reason. All of these designs, it's just weird. But the one that sits atop of the turd mountain of these designs has to be ASQ or ESQ. I think it's ASQ. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. How do you pronounce this motherfucker's name? All it is a penguin with an ice cube for a head. With a giant pube sticking out of the top of it for some reason. Now, up until Sword and Shield happened, my least favorite Pokemon of all time was Alolan Dugtrio. Because I just thought it was a totally retarded design. It was just Dugtrio with a wig on for no reason. Well, Alolan Dugtrio has been dethroned as the worst Pokemon of all time. ASQ is now right up there. And they really drove the point home, too, because this thing not only has an absolutely retarded look, it also has an alternate form where its ice cube head melts and it's just got like a tiny round blue head. But the names of these forms are so cringy. Well, one of them anyway. I thought the fucking Morpeko Hangry mode thing, I thought they couldn't out cringe the Hangry bullshit. Well, they found a way to do it. Because when he's got the ice cube head, it's called ASQ Ice Face. Once it melts, it's no ice face. But there's no space between the word no and ice, so they smashed it together so it's nice face. Like the retarded douchebag way to say nice. Even the names of these things have to be cringy. Like, why are they doing this? I don't understand. It's just that I felt like overall, this gen, they leaned way too hard on making funny joke meme designs. Like, we always have a few like that. Like last gen, we had Alolan Executor and things like that. But this time they just really went all in on that. And I thought they went way overboard, especially since most of them weren't even all that funny. We got multiple Pokemon that had some random part of it just really long for no reason. Gigantamax Meowth, Surfetched, Galarian Weezing. We got the Snowman Darmanitan thing going on. About half of the G Maxes, Duraludon turns into a skyscraper. It's just, this whole thing feels like a joke. It's like they weren't even taking it seriously. I'm not even against the idea of like funny joke designs. Like, I like Alolan Executor. I like Bruxish, and I like, things that have historically been weird designs and sort of out there. They're really hit or miss about whether if they work or not, and I feel like a lot of these just didn't work. And they were more concerned about, people making memes on Twitter than actually making competent creature designs. So, in my opinion, I think this is the worst overall crop of new Pokemon that we've gotten. They weren't all bad. There was a few good ones. Wooloo's Evolution Double, absolutely love it. I think it's awesome. Cramorant's Fish actually turned out to be a real Pokemon. It's named Arrokuda, and it has an evolution named Barrascuda. Both those are awesome. The Frostmoth line is awesome. I like Indeedee. I like Eternatus. Another issue, Eternatus, the third legendary, it has basically its own personal Gigantamax form that they gave a different name to. They call it Eternamax Eternatus, where like he's normally like a purple skeleton dragon thing, and his Eternamax form he turned into basically looks like a giant UFO with a big ass hand coming out of it. But anyway, I think both those designs look cool. But they've done something that they've never ever done in 23 years now of this franchise. They finally made a Pokemon form that's completely unobtainable in any way. There's no way to get Eternamax Eternatus. You just can't have him. Now, I know his stats are like 1135 or something like that. Some ridiculous base stat total. You can lower his base stat total once you obtain him or something. Like, it shouldn't be that way. They shouldn't have something that's totally unobtainable in any fashion. Once you catch Eternatus, he can't Eternamax anymore. In fact, none of the legendary trio can Dynamax at all. So that goes for Zacian and Zamazenta too. Once you get them, they can't even do the stupid gimmick they come out with this gen. But anyway, so overall, I think this is one of the weakest, pretty much the weakest crop of new Pokemon we've ever gotten. I was unimpressed by most of them and outright hated a very large portion, larger than I've ever done before. But as far as the actual dex itself goes, the regional Pokedex has 400 Pokemon in it. Plus, there are 35 extra Pokemon in the game's code that aren't in the regional dex. Mostly, it's just the Gen 7 starters, the other two Gen 1 starter lines, and then a few random legendaries and mythicals from past gens. We don't know how those extra 35 are going to be obtainable right now. They could end up being event Pokemon. They could be obtainable exclusively through transferring them in from home once that launches. We don't really know how that's going to work, but regardless, that means that out of the 809 pre-Gen 8 Pokemon, they cut 455 of them, which is about 56%. That's a huge amount. Again, all the people trying to defend this games, they were wrong yet again. You don't know it's going to be half. Well, fucker, it was over half. I didn't expect it to be quite that much. I expected the regional decks to be like in the 450 to 500 range, so that's a little smaller than I was expecting it to be. Not drastically though. Regardless, cutting any of them is unacceptable, so it doesn't really matter, but that whole thing just ended up pretty bad. Another thing I'm really worried about is those extra 35 that they might end up being available in timed events through the raids. When some of the Gigantamax forms are exclusively through that, I think Gigantamax Snorlax and Gigantamax Toxtricity are like that. And that's going to be a big problem because that's like some mobile style bullshit that's bleeding in from Go. Where, from this date to this date, you can get this in these raids, but it's like whatever percent chance, and you got to keep trying. And that's a horrible, cancerous mechanic that the fucking mobile market started. And it's been bleeding over into real video games more and more. And I'm very concerned about that happening now. I shouldn't be because it's already, a giant turd anyway. So I guess at this point, what would it even hurt? But that's the first thing I thought of when I saw those extra 35. I'm like, oh shit, they're going to do some mobile raid bullshit with this. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes, but it's probably not a good sign. As far as the other aspects of the game outside the dex itself, graphics, I'm not a graphics whore, so I'm not going to really throw a bitch fit about the graphics like a lot of people have. I don't care about the shitty textures on the tree and things like that. My only real issues with the graphics was the absolutely ridiculous amount of pop-in, especially in the wild area. That was really immersion breaking and just aggravating. So the pop-in was way over the top. And again, the in-battle scaling is totally ridiculous. They got the scaling right in the overworld encounters when you're walking around running into the Pokemon, but in battle, they're not their normal sizes. And it just looks so goofy when somebody who's supposed to be really big, like Wailord or Eternamax, you send them out and they're like chest high on a fucking 11-year-old or whatever. It looks so goofy. And before people come at me with the Joltik versus Wailord bullshits, where you can't have them scaled properly, we don't need them 100% scaled properly. We just need it a little bit closer than this. Like someone who's giant, like Wailord, Eternatus, Groudon, somebody like that. I mean, Groudon was cut, but you know what I mean. The big giant Pokemon, they should at least go over the trainer's head. It looks totally ridiculous. Especially when the entire gimmick for this gen is based around your Pokemon getting big. You'd think they would at least be able to scale things a little more accurately. So that bothered me. But other than that, I'm not really going to go off on a tirade about the graphics. The story, let's be honest, no one's playing a Pokemon game for the story. But even by Pokemon standards, this was a pretty bad story this time. All the characters weren't really likable. The plot made absolutely no sense. Most of it wasn't even mentioned until like towards the end of the game. I still don't understand the motivations for any of the so-called villains. And then the post-game little episode where you had to chase around those two chuckle fucks with the retarded names and the even more retarded hairstyles. Like, I could barely get through it just watching someone else play it. I couldn't imagine actually having to play it myself. It was all I could do to watch someone else do it. So, again, I know Pokemon stories have never been good, but come on, this is even a step down for them. Anyway, the Galar region itself, it's really small. Smallest region we've ever gotten. Only 10 routes. Most of them are pretty bare bones and basic. A few of them are good. But most of them are pretty barren. I think that the only towns are the ones with the gyms in it. So there's only like 9 towns, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. 9 or 10 towns. So, pretty small region. They really leaned heavily on the wild area. There's no other dungeons anywhere. Pretty much. I mean, there's the mines and things in that one forest, but there's very little dungeons. No Victory Road at all, or even an equivalent. Like, Alola didn't have a Victory Road either, but the Vast Pony Canyon at least served the purpose of that. There's nothing like that in this game. The wild area itself, people are way overselling this wild area. There is literally nothing to it. The entire thing is pretty much just a glorified safari zone, whether people want to admit it or not. You go into the thing, and it's basically just a big ass field and then like a little section leading to another big ass field. And the only thing you can really do there outside of the raids is catch Pokemon. There's a bunch of Pokemon, you catch them, that's fine. And then you can do the raids, which the whole point of the raids, again, is just catching Pokemon. Or getting items or whatever, grinding. But it's really bare bones. There's no hidden dungeons to explore. I thought there'd be like some cave entrances or maybe like an underwater area you could go, or some ruins or something that you could go into and explore inside the wild area. There just isn't. There's a whopping 1 trainer that you can actually battle in the wild area that changes locations and has the starters. So it's not even like a big area, and there's all these other trainers there that you can battle and explore like a normal route would have. There's a few NPCs that let you buy items, and there's a nursery there for breeding. But other than that, it's really barren, and the only point of it is catching Pokemon. So I don't understand why people are so excited by this thing. If you're getting this thrilled by the fact that you can move a camera around, then you need to find something else to get excited about, pal. I don't know what else to tell you. So the wild area ended up being really disappointing to me. I wasn't expecting it to be as great as some people were, but even I thought that this was pretty bare bones and basic and just underwhelming for as heavily as they promoted this pre-release. I thought there would be something else to it, and there just really wasn't. Post-game, already talked about it a little bit. There's really not much to the post-game, just the one episode with the 2 retarded guys you have to chase around. And then there's the battle tower, which even the battle tower is underwhelming compared to the ones we've gotten in the past. There's no new bosses in it, no new trainers or anything. The one who serves as the boss for the battle tower is just Leon again. He's got a different outfit, I think. But there's not really much to it. I think the only formats it offers is single and double, too. They don't even... I'm pretty sure they don't have super single and super double or multi-battle formats either. So there's less battle formats. There aren't any bosses to it. I don't even think you get a BP boost for beating Leon like you would for beating other like tower bosses in other games. So it's a gimped battle tower on top of that. No new areas open up post ending for you to go and explore. No new islands or anything off the coast, or new dungeons or new towns or any of that. There aren't really a lot of other side things. They're pretty much just leaning heavily on the raids. You can do the little mini post-game episode. You can fuck around in the gimped battle tower, and then you can go do raids over and 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 over again, because they made everything that you would need to get in this game reliant on the raids and gave them all really shitty spawn chances. So if you want hidden abilities, you got to go do raids. If you want the technical records, which are basically the single-use TMs brought back, but they're okay because they're not replacing TMs, they're replacing move tutors. But you get a lot of those from raids, so you have to grind for those. If you want any of the things that you purchase with watts, which is the new currency for the wild area, you got to grind the raids for watts. You got to grind the raids for Pokemon with the Gigantamax factor, because that's the only way to get them in the game. So even if you catch like a Toxtricity or a Hatterene or anybody, Corviknight, whoever that can Gigantamax, the one you catch in the game isn't going to be able to Gigantamax. It's only going to be able to Dynamax. If you want a Gigantamaxable one, you have to go catch another one through the raids, and they have really low chances of even showing up. So once they do show up, you better pray to whatever deity you believe in that you actually successfully catch it, because if it gets away, you're going to go back to grinding forever again. Which is honestly really stupid. Like, they went out of their way to make things easier this time, to make your sentimental Pokemon, like, easier to use in competitive. They made it where you can change the natures. They removed the cap on the vitamins and things, so EV training is easier. They made all these things more simple and more straightforward, and then they added in the Gigantamax factor thing and made it to where it's locked to only certain Pokemon, and there's no way to get it onto the Pokemon that you're already attached to. It doesn't even pass down through breeding, so you can't even like breed it onto another new Pokemon. You can pass the egg moves to the parents now, but you can't breed the Gigantamax factor. So it just seems like one step forward and two steps back. No word yet on if the Pokemon you're going to be able to send in through home once that comes out. No idea if those Pokemon will automatically be like guaranteed to have the Gigantamax factor or not. That would be really great. Oh yeah, here's the Charizard that you've had since Fire Red. You transferred it forward through all the other generations, and then through Bank and through Home, and you finally got it into Sword and Shield. Lucky for you, it didn't get cold, but oh look, you can't Gigantamax it, you better go get another one. Like, that is just so shitty. So anyway, beyond that, the other thing, I gotta mention this, as if cutting all the Pokemon weren't enough, they also cut 126 of the moves out of the game. Which I expected a few moves to be cut. I mean, things like signature moves for Pokemon that got cold, obviously it wouldn't make sense having them in the game. Like, Dialga got cold, so there's no need to have Roar of Time in the game. But they definitely did not limit it to that. They cut a ton of moves, some of which were signature moves for Pokemon that did make it in. Like, they cut out Heal Order, which is one of Vespiquen's signature moves, and Vespiquen made it into the game. So they cut things like that. They cut a ton of just regular moves, like Karate Chop and Pursuit and Return, Hidden Power, things like that. So they cut a ton of moves here. That 126 number does include all the different Z moves and the like weird partner Pokemon moves from the Let's Go games that had stupid names like Splishy Splash and shit like that. So that number does include those, but overall, it's just a ton of things cut from the battle system. They cut out the GTS as well, the Global Trade Station. It's totally gone. Have fun paying for that in Home, because we know that's the case. They're continuing their proud tradition of taking things that should be in the game and sticking them in their subscription-required cloud-based bullshit app, which is something they've been doing since Gen 6, so honestly, no one should be surprised by this, but still. So no GTS at all. A few other random things I just wanted to mention here. Gigantamax doesn't change their stats at all. It's literally just Dynamax, where it changes their HP and that's it. So the only difference is it changes the appearance and gives them a different max move. So that's pretty underwhelming. They put restrictions on what level Pokemon you can catch, which seems really unnecessary to me since they already have restrictions on, if they'll listen to you based on your badges. Now you can't even, like, attempt to throw a Pokeball at them if you don't have the right number of badges. Which, again, eliminates one of the points of the wild area, because, like, early on in the game, you get to the wild area, you can explore the entire thing as soon as you get there, if you want to. But there's really no reason to, because most of it, besides that first little area, is full of Pokemon that are so high of a level that, one, they would probably just completely steamroll your team, and if by some miracle they didn't steamroll your team, then you literally aren't even allowed to throw a Pokeball at them. So what's the point of even bothering exploring if I can't do anything with any of the Pokemon I find there, and there isn't much else to even find other than the Pokemon themselves? So that makes being able to explore the wild area early largely pointless. The camping stuff, again, they heavily promoted the camping stuff, and at best, it's a sidestep compared to Pokemon Refresh. You can't pet your Pokemon at all anymore. You can just throw a ball at them and wag the little Poketoy in their face. You can do the curry thing. That's the only way to feed them now, is through the little curry minigame. Which, I said this before, as soon as they did the curry trailer and said that there was over 100 recipes, I said there's going to end up being more curry recipes than there are Pokemon in this game. And sure enough, I was right. There's 151 curry recipes. And even if you're generous and count the Gigantamaxes and the regional variants as new Pokemon on top of the actual new species we got, that brings us to about 120, I think. Or somewhere close. If you count the mythicals, it might be 122. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Regardless, there's still more curry in this game than there are Pokemon. So glad these resources are going to the important stuff. They took the day-night cycle and changed how it works. Basically, the day-night cycle only works in the wild area, at least until post-game. For the rest of the time, the day or night in the cities and routes and stuff is based on your story progress. So, like, you could be in the wild area and it's night, and then you walk into town and it's daytime all of a sudden. But then you walk back into the wild area and it's nighttime again. So that just looks kind of weird. They totally removed all the location-based evolutions. So things like the Leafeon and Glaceon needing to be near the Mossy Rock and the Icy Rock. Charjabug evolving into Vikavolt with the electromagnetic field. They changed all that to basically just stone evolutions. Which, that seemed like a really odd time to choose to do that, when, again, you got this big barren-ass wild area. That seems like the perfect place to put location-based evolutions. Have the Mossy Rock somewhere in the wild area. Have, like, a cold section of the wild area with the icy stone in there, or the icy rock somewhere in there. Have part of it have the electromagnetic field. The wild area seems built for, like, location-based evolutions like that, and they took this opportunity to get rid of them. So again, that was an odd choice. And then the last thing I want to mention here is that, seemingly, as far as I could tell anyway, there's absolutely no mention of the multiverse anywhere in this game. So all the different dimension stuff, ultra space, wormholes, all that they've been building up since Oris, basically, they didn't build on that anymore. It looks like they totally abandoned that concept. No Looker in these games either, which you'd think he'd fit right in a region based on the UK, but whatever. So no Looker, no multiverse, no dimensions, no ultra space. All the Ultra Beasts got culled. They were one of the ones that got removed. And that just seems really disappointing, because they were doing a good job of building this and, drip feeding us more info about it with each new game, and they didn't really do that at all this time. So, again, that was kind of disappointing to me. So then, last thing here, real fast, I do want to go through because last year I made a video talking about what I wanted to see from Gen 8. I wanted to look back on that and compare it with what we actually ended up getting to see how that went. So, the things I said I wanted last year, first and foremost, I said I wanted the National Dex back. Well, we're off to a great start here. Not only is the National Dex not back, but over half the Pokemon are gone on top of that. So they went the opposite direction with that one. As far as the new Pokemon went, I said I wanted some new Mega Evolutions, which, again, they went the opposite direction and removed the entire mechanic. I said I wanted new regional variants that weren't restricted to Gen 1. They did that one. I'll give them that one. They did that one. I said I wanted new Legacy Evolutions. They did that one, but they took the needless restriction and slapped it on the Legacy Evolutions this time, so I'll give them half credit for that. I said I wanted new Ultra Beasts. Well, they got rid of the old ones. Again, step in the opposite direction. I said I wanted a few new unique Z moves. Again, opposite direction, remove the entire mechanic. I said I wanted the Versus Seeker brought back. There is no Versus Seeker in this game. There is no way at all to rematch regular trainers. You can rematch the gym leaders through the Champion Cup thing. But as far as like regular route trainers, there's no rematching them at all. I said I wanted the Dex Nav back. There is no Dex Nav. People tried to push that before launch, like they were bringing back the Dex Nav based on really flimsy information and a lot of assumptions. That was totally false. There is no Dex Nav or anything even close to it in these games. I said I wanted the Flats EXP model back. They did not do that. And then they ended up making the EXP share not optional. So that was kind of a step in the opposite direction too. I said I wanted Soaring and Diving back. We didn't get either one of those. I said I wanted an expansive post-game. We definitely did not get that. I said I wanted better customization for the male players. Now, they did expand customization a little and get like gloves and things this time. But every single outfit I've seen for the males makes you look like a giant raging douche canoe. So, personally, I'm not even going to give them credit for this because I couldn't find a single outfit that I even would have liked if I did get the damn thing. I said I wanted them to keep the Pokeride system from Gen 7. They did not keep that. Instead, they gave us a stupid bike with a Rotom on it that lets us roll over water. Because that's a thing that you should do, apparently. I said I wanted difficulty levels. We didn't get that. I said I wanted multiple save files. You know what? I'm not going to give them credit for that. We kind of can, but you got to make a separate profile on the Switch. So that's more of a Switch function than it is an actual game function. You can't select multiple save files within the same profile, so they didn't do that, so I'm not counting it. And then lastly, the thing that I thought that they would never do, I said I wanted some sort of way to change your Pokemon's nature. And that's the one thing they actually did. So, fuck me, I guess. I don't know why that ended up coming true when all the other things they went in the total opposite direction on. But overall, these games are just a complete abomination and an insult to any fan who's been following this for a long time. The fact that people are still defending this is completely just ridiculous to me. Like, if you can look at these games and honestly think that this is a good direction for the series to go and a step in the right direction in any shape, form, or fashion, then you're out of your fucking mind, dude. I don't know what else to tell you. You're fucking nuts. The one good thing that these games have done is it's really brought to the forefront how infected this fan base is with two groups. One, the zealots that will absolutely not only buy, but defend until their last breath anything with a Pokemon logo slapped on it. people make the joke about how they'd buy a turd in a box if it had Pokemon on it. I'm not even joking at this point. I honestly wish Game Freak literally would release a turd in a Pokemon box and just see how many people buy it. I think it would happen. I don't think it's a joke or hyperbolic or anything to say that. I think people absolutely would buy that and defend it and insult anyone who doesn't want to spend their money on a turd that's in the Pokemon box. So we got the zealots causing issues with their total worship of a logo. And then we got the brain dead normies who were brought in by the fucking Pokemon Go fad, who have absolutely no regard for the future of the series, the quality of the series, and are basically just playing it because the people they follow on social media told them to. People are shitting on Game Freak and blaming Game Freak for a lot of this. I'm telling you right now, you're going to be better off blaming the fan base than you are blaming the developers. But anyway, this entire generation has been a total train wreck. I'm extremely disappointed. I said before that I might, get the games eventually used or something. After watching all the playthroughs of them, I don't even want to do that. Like, I have absolutely no desire to play these games at all. I feel like I wouldn't get any enjoyment out of them. The Dex cut is what really made me decide initially to not bother with getting them, at least at launch. In hindsight, it might have actually ended up saving me some money, because if everything about these games stayed the same except the full National Dex was in it, I still feel like I would end up I would have bought them and ended up really disappointed. So overall, I'm just honestly pretty upset about in case you couldn't fucking tell, I've been rambling for almost 50 damn minutes here about this bullshit. I'm really disappointed. I think this is a huge step backwards. I think this is the first time in this franchise's history where we got the launch of a new generation and it didn't move the series forward in any meaningful way. I think it took away so much and added so little while also increasing the price that it's the first time that they failed to actually advance the franchise, advance this series as a whole, which is something that they've managed to do with every other generation, one way or another. Say what you will about which gen is better than whatever. There was always at least something that you could point to and say, hey, at least this is better now. I don't really get a sense of that this time. So, anyway, these games are giant turds, and every day I have less and less hope that the future is going to bring us anything better, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that works out. So, anyway, I guess that's all I got to say. So, lots of luck to you and yours.